Hey, Redcasters, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos. Go Big Red.
Throw on your left side.
Hi, Coach Abbie Harris, Go Big Redcast. After completing your first season in the Big Ten, what advice do you wish you would have received?
Welcome to the Go Big Redcast, the Husker Fan Sports Show.
I'm with Honky.
Hey, wow, this is 62 days since we've done a show. I can already tell, we're getting some of the cobwebs out and everything, but looking forward to chatting with Redcast Abbie. She was in Indianapolis today for the Big Ten Media Days. Football is right around the corner, everyone. Go Big Red.
Absolutely. The nationally known Go Big Redcast. That's what we are now, right, Rob?
As a matter of fact, we are the nationally known, and for all I know, we're internationally known. And, I just wanted to find out, Abbie, had you had to go back and look at your first question being asked at Big Ten Media Days, what advice do you wish you had gotten before doing that?
Joke's on you,
Rob.
Rob.
For your best questions you've ever asked.
I will say this, though. You and I are now officially the only people to actually ask questions at Husker media press conferences. So good on us. It's like Wonder Twin Towers activate. Yes.
Is that it, Rob? Is that your?
I stopped talking, Dave, so you can.
Okay,
good. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean,
I know
we're
it's
rusty,
been a while. I
It's
know
been
you're not used to
62
this.
days or something like that. Yeah. I mean, like when Abbie asked the question, my theory was before Rhule answered that in his head he had to be saying like the Redcast. That's cool. That's awesome. They haven't done a show in a while though, huh? Honky sure looks like me. maybe I should hire him to do public speaking for me. Crap. What was her question? Screw it. I'll just go back to Osborne and it'll come to me. I think that's what happened, Boomer. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, there was that slight pause on his face when he was trying to figure out who we were. But yeah, I enjoyed that, and I'm just glad to see we are taking advantage of the increased scholarship sizes and roster changes to add Redcast Abbie to the show. So yeah,
that's true. Excellent. We now have 105 scholarships for the Redcast.
Correct. Yep.
So
we got a lot to fill, Honky.
Yeah, we got a lot of squares to fill, Dave. So, yeah.
But no walk-ons. We can't have any walk-ons. Is that right?
Not right now. Yep.
Yeah. Dave, before we move on, actually, I've got some really exciting news.
Oh,
yeah.
Rob has exciting news after 2 months.
Well, first, I would like to give a shout out to Herd Sports as our main supporter. They've been broadcasting our podcasts out to all of you on all of your favorite podcast listening platforms for the last, I think, 5+ years now or something like that. And we are going to continue being a part of their podcast platforms and a part of Herd Sports for the as far unforeseeable future at this point. We signed on with them again another year right here. It's the annual time of year. Another shout out to Alumni Hall. I'm not even sure they're still our sponsor, but they've always been really supportive of us. So maybe I should reach out to them and find out.
So we'll just keep on talking about it.
It's my fault because it's been 62 days since we've been a show, and I probably should have followed up with that. But you know what?
It was the off season, Rob. It's okay.
It was. And also to Smack and Smooch, because Shane and Laura are still out there. And anytime you guys want to get some Redcast gear, Smack and Smooch will go ahead and make that for you to your liking. But I've also got something really exciting to talk about, guys. I got a phone call tonight, and I got the go-ahead from the man himself, and it was great. Always a great conversation when I talk to him. The Redcast now is officially going to be publishing all of our YouTube material and maybe occasionally our deepest inner thoughts in blog form on the Carricker Chronicles moving forward. And we are going to be a part of that family. They are redesigning their entire website, and we are going to be out there as a part of Adam Carricker's team as well. So it's kind of like we are just becoming a part of a very large conglomerate of excellent Husker podcasts. Rob Zadika has his podcast and YouTube channel on there. Corn Nation has theirs on there. And I was looking at the website today, Chronicle Carricker's website. They've done it really well. They put it together. They redesigned the whole thing. And there's a ton of people that are joining him on there, and we're going to be a part of that moving forward. And it's just super exciting for me. You know, again, and it's always a little surreal when I'm sitting here making dinner, trying to like get my kids to eat, make my wife dinner. She's off at class, and I get a phone call from Adam Carricker to just, you know, shoot the stuff for a few minutes about this. It's all really exciting. He's the nicest guy in the world. And
nicer than you, Rob?
I don't know if that's possible, Dave.
It's true.
You know,
it's
so
true.
I'm excited. You know, I guess we should take 62-day breaks all the time because people apparently want us more when we're not around.
It's true. Boomer, we know what Rob's deepest thoughts are, but I'm waiting for a blog on Character Chronicles about James Joyce, Nitschke, Immanuel Kant, something good from you. What are you thinking, man?
Yeah, we can do that, and I can tie in, you know, Jumbo Steam and Bummy Booth to that as well. So I've got some long form essays. I'm ready to hit.
Yeah.
There's a need for a new statue, so that's
exactly.
See, Abby, you're right. You're part of the team already, and that's something else we should announce too. I should say that is that. Dr. Abbie something here, and she really is a doctor. I believe she has like a doctorate or PhD in data
psychology.
Psychology. Oh, it is psychology.
Data psychology. I don't
well,
even know.
Well, she does a lot of data analysis as well. That's kind of her passion, and she does a lot of that as well. And she can talk about that more if she ever wants to, but because some of the stuff she does in and around college football is actually super interesting from that perspective. So it always makes me giggle when people say they know more about like coaching hires and things like that than she does, because sometimes she is like legitimately involved in some of the processes behind the scene. But
so is she going to test that you never get hired as a coach? Is that correct, Rob?
Never say never.
Yeah, Abby says yes, she would not hire you as a coach.
No,
Abby,
but here's
other exciting forever, Abby.
We have been getting a lot of requests over the last
for you to stop talking. That's so true, Rob.
Oh, Dave. Well, you know, it has been a while. I'm gonna
keep. I want to do this show.
I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep going though here. But the other thing that I wanted to announce too is that we've been getting a lot of requests for more content on volleyball, women's softball, women's basketball. And, you know, we've got a lot of the men's sports really well covered, but Honky and I talked, all of us talked, and we were trying to decide what the best way to get some of that content out was. And so as far as I'm concerned, the one person out there that knows as much about those sports as anybody is Abby herself. And so we are going to be doing some, well, she's going to be coming on the show when it's, you know, when she can, but we're also going to be doing some side shows. Is that the right term I want to use? Like,
how about spinoffs? That's a good
spinoffs. Thank you. Yeah. Of for women's sports. And those are also going to be published on the Character Chronicles website. And we're going to be putting them out there on our YouTube channel. And, you know, hopefully that will satisfy the need for a lot of people that are asking us to provide that content for them.
Okay. And Rob, are you done now? Okay, so Abby, I'm not keen on all this stuff, but I think Rob was trying to speak for you, and maybe we should let Abby speak for herself. I don't know. There's this misogynistic thing going on here. I don't know. So Abby,
I was just trying to make announcements.
Oh yeah, no. This is great. I don't know that I'm an expert on women's sports. I just really love women's sports, and I watch a lot of it, and it's weird to say that like COVID had a good thing, but the COVID year got me into basketball and softball in a way that I think I hadn't been before. I've always been a big volleyball fan, but so getting really into it and then watching and having that accessibility and being able to talk about it, I think is really exciting. And I'm very honored and thankful that you guys would think of me to be that person to talk about it, but I'm very excited and I'm very happy to be a part of it and help grow women's sports. It's growing the big, like it's I didn't watch any of the other media days. We're going to kind of hop around. But being at this one and Tony Petitti opening media days, football media days with talk about volleyball and basketball is just like, amazing. I don't think any other conference would do that. I think the Big Ten has always really led the way in women's sports. And so I'm really excited to be a part of it and do what I can to help us. And Nebraska's such a women's sports school.
It is.
It makes sense. And so I'm really excited to be a part of it.
We've had so many requests over the last 7 years, partially because we talk so much about football and men's basketball, and that hasn't been great for the majority of that time. But we've had so many requests to do more sports, and quite honestly, we don't know enough. And so it's good. It's good to get people that are passionate about the other sports there too, that have a knowledge base and everything about it. And so hopefully we can kind of create something cool and unique there. And you're in Indianapolis right now. I was in Indianapolis a week ago, and one of your favorite players, but a great female athlete who's doing amazing things. But in Indianapolis, you cannot walk down the street without seeing a football size field, a poster of Caitlin Clark on one of the hotels down there. So you get to see that every day right now, right?
So great. I love it. No, I mean, we kind of talked about it. It's like, it's fine. Has she gone anywhere other than Iowa? I'd love her so much more. But
she's not wearing black and gold any longer, right?
She is not wearing. No, she's not. And we all know it. She's a great player. She's done so much for women's basketball, and so it's really cool to see that. And the hope is that eventually that will happen for more players, and it won't be such a. This sounds really bad. Like, it won't be such a phenomenon to have a star female player, that it'll just be normalized like it is for men. And so it sucks that I have to look at her face, but it's great. It's really great. You should see Dustin's face every time we walk by. He's just like, look, your favorite person. I'm like, oh, I hate you so much. But it'll be, I think it'll be really good. I think we'll see that moving forward, and it'll start with basketball, and I think we'll start seeing it with other sports too.
Well, Rob took up most of the time for promotions, but I do want to throw one out for next week. We have a Matt Rhule that's going to be with Brett Ciancia, Pick 6 previews. So that's Mac and I next Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. Be joining us, and hopefully we're going to get this Twitter thing figured out, because we didn't realize until we literally went live tonight, somewhere in the last 62 days since we last did a show, we can't go live at Twitter. Where there's something that we have to. I'm getting some error message, and so we'll get that figured out, and hopefully here in the next week.
It's called X, right now. Honky. Maybe it's just the wrong thing.
Is it because I'm calling it Twitter and that's pissing off Elon or something? But
yeah, pay for it right now. We'll go live.
We'll figure it out.
I'll send you the card number. Right.
Anyways, I have a good segue here, Dave, to what's going on today in Indianapolis, and you heard it at the very beginning, Redcasters. But let's do it again here, Abbie. Redcast Abbie asked her first question. Here we go.
Hi, Coach. Abbie Harris, Go Big Redcast. After completing your first season in the Big Ten, what advice do you wish you would have received?
That's a great question. Abbie, you're so much better at this than Rob. I cannot even describe it in words.
That's it. Screw you, Dave. You're out of here.
I mean, it's not even close. You mean you didn't like actually say anything negative about the guy? You stayed positive through the whole
so hard. It's so hard. Like, you don't think it's gonna be that hard. You're just like asking a question. Matt Rhule's so personable. He's so normal. And then like the guy comes over with a microphone, and I told Dustin, I was like, I'm gonna throw up. I'm just gonna throw up before I ask this question, or I'm gonna like, I don't know, Deshaun Watson it and just or just DeForest and just like threes, and I don't know.
You did not though. You delivered it calm and cool. You had the delivery that you needed. It's awesome. It was
a good question. Got a good answer. I was afraid of that too.
The answer was great.
Yeah.
Right.
I did tell Dustin. I was like, he's going to answer the wind. He's going to talk about the wind. Matt Rhule loves talking about the wind. And sure enough, talked a little bit about the wind.
Well, Honky likes talking about the wind. So, Honky, what do you think about that answer?
Well, for the Redcasters that maybe aren't as up on what they're talking about there, is that he referred to the change in playing in the Big Ten that Osborne last year before the season started talked about how the wind in November and October, how different that's going to be, and how you have to adjust your game plan styles for it. And he gave credit to a coach like Ferentz that has been in the conference for years and understood that. And look, when you're losing 3-point games and close 1-score games, 5 of them last season, 4 of them by a field goal, 1 in overtime, and he referenced that a number of times. Every little inch matters, right? And I thought that was a really interesting take that he had from that. Just in general, I guess, how did, Abbie, how does the media respond to him? The others that you were talking to, how do they like sitting there with him, asking questions? Do they just love the guy? Is he a quote machine for him, or, what's the take talking with the other folks around you?
I think he was, I don't want to say he was a quote. He was pretty buttoned up today. He had some good quotes. He had some things he said that got some attention, some kind of national attention. But he's not a guy who's gonna say something, I don't want to say inflammatory, but he's not gonna say the big like, oh, what did he talk about kind of thing.
Sure.
So he has some good answers, some things that he knows will get some attention in a good way. I think it seemed to be a really, I want to say enjoyable. He is so personable when he talks, and it doesn't matter who's asking him the question. He'll, look you in the eye. He'll give you kind of what feels to be a very authentic, kind of in the moment answer. Like he's having a conversation with you. And we've sat in on a couple other of the individual coaches when they did theirs, and you could tell they were still very much in, I am in football media mode. Matt just seemed, that sounds weird. Just seems a little more casual and a little more comfortable, I think, talking to the media, I think, than we've had as for a coach in a while. I don't think, I know. But I get the vibe that people are comfortable asking him questions, and even maybe potentially uncomfortable questions, because he's pretty good at kind of handling that and giving an answer that feels real.
Mm-hmm. I think of this offseason right now, we're going into year 2 of Rhule. He has quite the reputation that precedes him with that year 2 and year 3 bump. And he's talked about how at Nebraska, he thinks everything's fast forwarded a year, that last year was really like a year 2 for him, that this year could be like a year 3. He's confident in this team. There's definitely a confidence there. And it starts with the fact that we haven't had this mass exodus of older players. We have within the trenches on the offense and defensive line, we're an old team. He talked about how being an old team is what's going to win today. One of the things that I think was interesting is that he's maintained this confidence. And I feel like most Husker fans, even if we've been bid over the years, most Husker fans think that this could be a lot better season, definitely a bowling season, but it hasn't been met with that hype that comes with it either. We're the 8th ranked preseason team out of 18. There's no reason to overhype this. This isn't 2019 second year of Frost where it was the offseason of hype. It feels like we all can look at this team and be pretty confident that we're going to see a marketable difference, a better team, the defense returning, but just being better. And then he focused multiple times on how the offense is going to be better. But he managed to pull that off without, to your point, Abbie, saying the inflammatory things, doing anything to overhype or anything like that. But I mean, but there's definitely a confidence that he's exuding right now. You can tell.
Oh, you can absolutely tell when he talks about this team. It's different. It's a different way. And like I said, we've talked to some other coaches, or we listened in on some other coaches who maybe know that this year is going to be a little rough for them. I'm not going to name names. I think we can guess who those coaches are. Yeah. I mean, real sorry, Dustin. Ryan Walters kind of, I think, knows this is going to be a tough year. Their schedule is brutal. So he kind of knows this is going to be a rough year. There's a curve, right? A kind of a growth curve. But the way, and I'm trying not to be biased here. It was really hard not to be, but I feel like the way that he talked about his team is similar to how like a James Franklin talks about his team, or even a Ryan Day. Like, it's similar to how a Ryan Day talks about his team, where he's like, yeah, look, we know there's things to work on, but we feel there was something about it that felt safe. If that, like you felt safe believing him this time than maybe we have in the past.
Mm-hmm. Confidence also seems real as opposed to just words. That's from the BA coaches show. Yeah, no, I look at we had an interesting Redcast text chain kind of the other day, and we were talking about maybe some expectations or what's a lot.
It was an interesting text chain.
I thought it was the first one that we've done in a while like that. I mean,
it was the first one we've done in a while, and it was a fun one. I enjoyed it.
It was a fun one. And I think part of it, since this is media days, we're talking about the preseason media order of finish. Nebraska was 8th here. This might be the USA Today one, but it doesn't matter. They're all kind of roughly the same. What is of particular note to me is the first 7 games of the season. There is a 2016 kind of feel coming here where we started that year 7-0, the second season of Riley, 7-0, but you really didn't know exactly how good we were at that point because we hadn't played that strong of a schedule.
State again?
No, I'm not going that far because that's past 7 games. But this one here, right now, if you look at the preseason order of finish, the 4 teams that we start with the conference, the 4 teams that we start playing, we kick off against, it'll be in week 4, it'll be against number 14 preseason Illinois. Then we go on the road to Purdue, which is dead last, 18th. And then we play Rutgers, and they're either 9th or 10th, depending on which polls you've seen. They come to Lincoln. So I've heard people be worried about Rutgers, and not that I'm just saying if we're sweating Rutgers and Lincoln, there's a problem. And then we go on the road to play Indiana, and they're preseason number 17. So our two away games in the first 7 games, and our first 2 away games in conference are against the 17th and 18th preseason ranked teams. We don't start the season off on the road like we have the last 4 years, like we did the first 2 games a year ago against 2 Power 5 teams. We actually start the season off against a non-Power 4, I guess now, a non-Power 4 team in UTEP at home, which is unique. We start off with 4 straight home games. We don't have a national championship contender in Michigan coming to town in week 5 like we did a year ago. So when you look at all those things, quite honestly, I'd be really disappointed if we aren't bowl eligible by the time that 7th game is done. And when Rhule talked about how it would be a failure if this team didn't go to a bowl this year, I'd be really disappointed if we were not bowl eligible by the time we're going to Ohio State, I guess, in week 8 or week 9, whatever week that is, but game 8.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Boomer.
I was just saying, Honky's right on that. If you are going to be saying you're taking steps forward as a program, we were a 5-win team last year, and everyone thought, you just need that one more win to get to a bowl, and somehow couldn't manage it. And you're never going to get probably a softer schedule on paper in the new Big Ten than this. So I think you do have to take advantage of that. And like you said, Honky, if you're not bowl eligible by those first 6, and if you somehow don't make a bowl this year, that means not only did you fail in the easy games, you didn't pick off any of the tougher opponents towards the end. And there's no way you can say you were taking, steps forward in that case. So no, you are right. I probably bowl eligibility fairly soon in the season, I think is a good, good measuring stick, I think, for this year.
Yeah. I mean, I think we all know that getting off to a good start here is going to be critical because the back half of the schedule does get tougher. I mean, we don't know what the back half actually looks like until we get there, right? Though, but I mean, I had some fun pressing on this in our text thread because the wording was "there's no excuses," right? I'm like, well, I don't know what's an excuse, or Rob, you said it. The difference between an excuse and an explanation is what?
An excuse is trying to deflect the blame away onto other entities or people, and an explanation is taking responsibility for your actions.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So to that question, to Honky, there's no excuses. We don't go 6-1. You're right. We don't need to deflect blame at any point here. Could there be valid reasons on how we didn't get to 6-1? Sure. Yeah. I mean, I could see scenarios where, I don't know, some D coordinator throws some junk defense out there and Dylan doesn't, play like a 5-star player. And we're all like, oh no, we're so worried about him. But I mean, it was just something that he wasn't prepared for. And you know what, if he sees it again, he'll be ready, but it didn't happen, right? So there's ways we don't go 6-1 or 7-0, but if from a gambling perspective, Boomer, if I told you that Nebraska was favored on all 7 of those first games, you'd probably say yes, right?
Yeah, I'd be really surprised if they weren't favored, just kind of on paper again.
So,
You know,
so on paper, we should win those games, right? There's a bunch of other explanations on why it doesn't happen per se, but right when the big thing here is we want to get off to a good start, build some momentum, and then face those last 5 games with the confidence that we have a team that can win, right? I'm going to deflect from Rob because Rob's. Well, go ahead, Boomer.
I was just saying, also be nice going to those last games, not having the pressure that we did last year when you were 5 wins.
It'd be awesome to get the 6 right away.
Well, if you're already bowl eligible, then everything else is house money at that point.
And no one's going to blame you for losing to Ohio State by whatever number it is, right? It just is what it is, right? So,
well,
Abby,
62-3 aside, but yeah, Abby, I was going to ask
I don't even know if that's even that worrisome in my opinion at this point, right? We're just trying to get to a bowl. I don't care.
you and I can have different expectations, Dave. That's fine. But Abby, I want to talk about the expectations that some of the players had. You talked about one of the players had an expectation very similar to what Rob might talk about. And look, at the end of the day, preseason confidence, at least I want that out of the guys. Rhule talked about the team being, more confident walking through the hallways. What sense did you get talking with the players about that confidence level coming into the season?
They feel good. I think you can tell that they feel ready this year and they feel that jump. Isaac was the one, somebody kind of, I don't remember who asked, they, mentioned that Matt doesn't like to put a record out because that means he thinks they'll lose 4 games, 3 games, however many games. And who wants to think about losing those games? And Giff was just like, yeah, but why don't we just win them all? And I just thought, yeah, why not? Why not just win them all? But you could tell, we kind of asked them, like, why are you guys coming back? And they're like, because we have unfinished business, because 5 and 7 isn't good enough. We deserve better. We'll do better. And you can, similar to Matt, and I think probably a sign that they're all dialed in on the same messaging, that they seem focused. They seem ready. They know what they're capable of. They know the jump. They know what those rooms look like in a way that I really don't think even the best media people know. I think there's something very special in those rooms that is uniquely known to those guys, but you feel it when they talk about this team and why they came back, and if they thought it was a good idea to have come back with where they are. You get that vibe from them.
Yeah.
And again, something that I think people have said it. We've had players say it in the past of like, oh, we want to do better. We want to leave a legacy, blah, blah, blah. And maybe it's different because it's the first time I've been there and face to face to them, but it definitely feels like they have that same confidence in themselves.
It's always harder to execute than to say, but I
definitely.
mean, there's always going to be a year that it happens, right?
Yeah.
And then, I mean, from our fan base standpoint, it's more about being sustainable, right? I mean, 1 year is great, but we'll always want to build. I do think that, I was listening to the Cover 3 podcast, which is the first time those guys have been at Big Ten Media Days because it's CBS, and they now have Big Ten as a part of their collection of football games. So that was kind of cool. And I mean, most of those guys were like, 7-5, 8-4, 8-4 is definitely realistic. Danny Cannell was like, they should start 7-0. To everyone's point here. So these are national media guys. They're like, they look at the schedule, they look at the upgrade in certain positions, the returning defense. And Rob, it's not hard to get to 7-5 or 8-4, right? I don't think we're being too much on the tint of the scarlet colored glasses here, right? The Kool-Aid's not too rich for us, right?
Well, I'll start off by saying this is that even one of the other media members who's I can't remember right off the top of my head said straight up to Rhule, if you don't make a bowl game this year, he couldn't even finish the question, and Rhule right out said,
absolutely,
yes, it would be a disappointment before the question was even finished. And I'm going to have to agree with him on that. I've seen a lot of different podcasts out there, listened to a lot of different radio shows. Everyone seems to have the same, saying, given even a disaster season, 5-7 would be a big disappointment, obviously.
Yes.
But
I mean,
that, like, on paper,
7-5
when
is
you
kind
look
of,
at it, if we don't go 8-4, that's like that should be like our mid, and our ceiling is like 10-2, and maybe we catch lightning in a bottle somewhere and go like 11-1 or something, right? And end up in the championship game. But
there's no
in that regard, and again, and that's not just me drinking the Kool-Aid, because I'm not the only one saying stuff like that anymore. And it's a lot of people are out there saying, like, this might be one of the most complete and talented teams that Rhule has put together on paper out of all 3 of his college stops where he was doing a rebuild like this. Sure. And
if your true freshman quarterback can deliver. So Boomer, let me throw this one out to you. I mean, to me, again, from a gambling perspective, Nebraska has a relatively small window. Sometimes you have really low floors and high floors with teams. You're like, oh man, they can go 4-8 or 8-4 or whatever like that. I feel like Nebraska is a 6-6 or probably a 9-3 or 10-2 team at best, right? I mean, do you feel like we're just going to fall somewhere in that middle?
Again, the data would probably say yes, but at some point,
Brett Ciancio maybe will have a good answer for us.
Yeah, he would, or we have a data analyst on the show now. Yeah, she may as well. But I think at some point, a lot of it will just come down to things like Rhule talked about today. Like, will they be able to clean up turnovers? Whether it's will both stop turning the ball over so much and
field goal percentage 60%. Boomer, we hit 60% of our field goals. We were last in punt return average in the entire country. Simple things like that could completely flip that number, right?
Yeah, it's little things like that. It's stuff that should be fixable, but this program hasn't fixed for a decade, it seems. But and those little things, if you can fix those things, I think it's going to be fairly easy to flip that higher than that 6 win. So I kind of have a feeling that if what Rhule says is actually happening, it'll be towards that higher end. I think it's a lot easier to see 9 as opposed to 6.
Well, so Honky, I want to roll this for one more second. All right. This is for you. All right. I mean, you had a it's not a tweet any longer. It's an X. I mean, what do you do when you post on X? I don't know. And you asked the question, are we going to go 6-1, 5-2, 4-3, or other, right? And I think generally speaking, most people were in the 5-2 or 6-1 range. If you get to 7-0, I mean, let's have fun with this, right? I mean, I can be pessimistic and say, hey, realistic, whatever.
No, Dave's not. But keep going.
I mean, but I mean, it's not unrealistic to go 7-0 because I mean that schedule is one of the best 7-0 schedules you could ever paint for a Nebraska team at this point. You have non-conference that's set up. Colorado's at home. UTEP's horrible. Northern Iowa, whatever. You get Big Ten teams at home. You have horrible teams on the road. There's an easy path to 7-0. What do you need to get to the playoff, right? You honestly don't actually want to make the Big Ten championship game. You want to go 10-2. You go 10-2 in the Big Ten, you might be the 4th team in the Big Ten, and the 4th team in the Big Ten might get into the playoff, right? I mean, that's our dream, right? Let's get in the playoff in the first year that's 12, right? You go 7-0, and all you need to do after there is go 3-2, right? And you have a UCLA team that I think is totally beatable. I have no idea what USC looks like, even though we're on the road. And then you've got, okay, I'll give you Ohio State. Sure, we're going to lose that one. But Wisconsin and Iowa, split one of those, and you're 10-2 with some good wins. And you're the 4th team in the Big Ten to get into you're the 12th seed. Is that possible?
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to Rhule talk, he's thrown out the playoff word, and not necessarily with this season, although he wasn't discounting it. He was saying it towards the next year, but he's talking about what the expectations the Husker fans would have. Again, I'll throw it back to the 2016 season. We were 7-0, and we didn't know how good we were because the opponents didn't tell us a lot. We could be 7-0 this year, and I think that we could legitimately look at it and go, I don't know how good we are yet. But, Dave, if you remember that year where we went 7-0, it was the 8th game where we went to Wisconsin. We played them to overtime. We lost in overtime.
Should have won that game.
The exact same thing that happened when Ohio State went to Wisconsin that year. Went to Camp Randall, won in overtime. We lost in overtime. So you and I fast forward a week. Now we're flying out to the Horseshoe. You and I are sitting in the airplane. We're talking Husker football. Next thing I know, we've got about a crew of about 10 sitting around us wanting to listen to what we're talking about. And it was, what do you think is going to happen against Ohio State? And I was like, I didn't know after game 7, but after game 8, I was pretty confident that this is going to be I'm not saying we're going to beat them, but it's going to be a 4-quarter game. And we went out there and it wasn't a 4-play game. You throw the interception, you're down 7-0 before you know it, and you lose 62-3. When I referenced that 62-3 earlier, is that if you want to get to the playoff, I don't care what our record is, you can't lose 62-3. It is important, and it is also.
We need to be more competitive as Ohio State.
This is
to.
Everything
That's
that
fair.
we're talking about.
That's fair.
Everything that
I
we're
agree.
talking about in year 2 of Rhule with a very experienced team coming back, and he referenced that. And Abbie, I'm going to go back to you with this. He's referenced that so many times. You can tell there's a level of confidence that it would be a disturbing thing to me at some point if I'm sitting there. If we are 6-1, 7-0, but and we just get shellacked in game 8. If anybody can say, yeah, what if you have 38 injuries? I get it. Hopefully we're not having those things. But I mean, Abbie, I don't get the sense that there's any excuses or any beliefs or anything that they're not going to have that success early. He just really came off I'm not trying to hype it. There's no reason to hype it. I mean, the 7 games, we're going to play them no matter what. But it's not hype, but he's just that confident right now. I think he just really likes his team.
Yeah, I think there's a confidence, not a cockiness to him about it. Yeah, he's respectful of the opponents that we have to play, and regardless of what it says on paper, he's respectful. But I think this is more. I think his belief is more in, and he's kind of said this. It's more about his team and not about the opponents. Like specifically, somebody asked him about recruiting, and he goes, "Well, we don't recruit against people. We recruit for us." And you can tell that seems to be the way he views this team. Is like, it's not about who we play; it's how we play. And there are no excuses. He made a great point. We're not cursed. We're not cursed. Yeah. It's our affliction. We're doing it. It's us. So he seems to be really big on that accountability and like this team. But you're right. There's a confidence there. I mean, it's quiet, but it's loud at the same. That doesn't make sense. He's not shouting about how good this team is, but it's clear that he believes in this team, and he's gotten the team to believe in him. So
I know this was the Big Ten media days, but was there much talk about Colorado at all? Did that ever come up in any of the conversation? And I'm curious because in that first 7 games, that game is a very early litmus test, but it's also, this goes back to there are certain steps along the way. Let's say we're going to go 6-1 or 7-0. There's certain steps along the way to get there. And Colorado is a game that, as much as anything, it is a contrast in styles, not just styles of X's and O's, but Dion is now 2 years into his program of, I'm flipping everything again. That offensive line that he flipped and brought his own offensive line last year and they sucked, he's replaced them all, and now there's a whole new offensive line. Whereas Rhule sit there and said, look, we're going to build down, as he said against Joel in the Joel Klatt interview, sometimes you have to dig down to build up. And that's kind of what this last year was. Well, if that offensive line gave up 8 sacks to Nebraska a year ago, which they did, and now they've replaced them all, but we've got Nash back, and we've got Ty Robinson back, and we've got Butler back, and then we don't lose the Leonards, and we didn't have this mass defection of young or old. We're old now in the trenches. All the things that's building that confidence in them. That Colorado game to me is so huge, not just to win. And I'm not trying to hype it, but that needs to be that to me, that feels like that has to be a solid win. Like we should be way ahead of Dion with what Rhule is wanting to build compared to Dion, which is just flipping players in and out.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Hockey. I mean, like it will be a litmus test. I mean, from what I've been hearing about Colorado, I mean, I talked to Boomer about low and high floors, right? I mean, I think Colorado's the opposite, right? I'm hearing 4-8. Some people are like, dude, if they win 4 games, that's lucky. And I'm hearing, 9-3 and whatever, right? They're like,
sure.
they're like, and these are people that legitimately like follow the sport. They just don't know, right? I think the the issue with Colorado is that they have flipped the roster in some ways again. They have probably strengthened their starting 22. I think they probably have a better offensive line and a better defensive line than they had last year. I still don't think they have any depth of any nature. So I would love to get Colorado again in week 7 or 8, 9 or 10. But a healthy Colorado and Shadur Sanders still might be the best player on that field that day, week 2. And Shadur Sanders he's gonna play in the NFL. He's that good. I don't know how great he'll be in the NFL, but he's definitely gonna play in the NFL. And he's just as good as Raiola, right? And so we'll have to figure out how to stop that and get to him and make those 8 sacks or whatever count. Right? I mean, you can't just sack him 8 times and then he still pops back up and throws for 400 yards and 36 points. It doesn't work.
Well, our defense was on the field a bunch because of the number of turnovers we had too. So if we can stop the turnovers and our defense isn't on the field for 3/4 of the game, to answer the question, I was watching Big Ten Media Days at work while I was trying to get some work done. And
congratulations, Ron.
Thank you. And there was a question asked to the 3 players that were in attendance there by is it Lisa Binghamton? Is that what she was interviewing them at the not a podium, but at the table there?
Oh
yeah. And she asked them if I know the typical answer is we're worried about game 1, we just want to win game 1, etc. And Luke basically just straight up said, oh, no, it's hard to not think forward to that game and how big it's going to be at home, a night game in front of our own crowd. It's going to be some of the biggest energy we've ever faced as players in our entire career. And if we go out there and lay an egg in that game, they're like, what does that say about us? They would be the first Nebraska team to lose to Colorado 4 times in a row. They've never lost to them 4 times in a row. And so none of them want that to happen. They all just agreed that pretty much they're not going to let that happen this year. So
it's interesting that got asked by a national kind of person because it never came up from the local media people. I think when I was there, the only time it got brought up was somebody was asking Ty about the night game atmospheres, and he was kind of listing them off, and he's like, I'm missing one. And I said, it's Colorado. And he goes, oh, yeah, Colorado. That'll be a good game. That's it. But so nobody thought it was interesting that nobody thought to ask about Colorado because I don't know if there was more interest in this idea of you've got all these returning people. What does that look like? So I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
So it is interesting that got asked. It's
probably
not surprising.
For me too. I mean, they were probably looking for some kind of soundbite out of them, and they didn't give one. It was really professional answers. All 3 of those guys were really well versed in media talk for sure.
Here's the thing. Amy just wrote about that before media days. She called it out. She said, look, you're not going to get things. You're not going to get anything out of Matt Rhule. You're not going to get them out of the players. They are prepared for this. And she was right.
So you're telling me, Abby, that we now have a communications director that actually gives them talking points?
It sure
I am shocked and appalled by this idea.
That department is working in tandem. Yeah.
I mean, Rhule didn't walk out and be like, okay, let's just skip the initial, box, straight to questions.
Robert, don't joke about that because there was a coach that should have done that this year.
Yeah. You think a coach in Hollywood would know better, but no, they sure didn't.
Well, we're in LA.
Man. It's not
we're
that
LA,
hard.
Kind of like
they
next
work
to
relatively
USC
cheap. They'll keep you in the. I just don't get it, man.
Yeah, in case you don't know, I'm just excited to be part of the Big Ten.
I've told people I thought he was building. I'm sorry, this is off topic. This is not Nebraska related. I thought he was building. I thought that we're in LA. I was like, good. We're joking. Oh, no, we're not. Nope, this didn't. I thought for sure it was going to be just building, we're the Bruins.
Did you see Deshaun Foster's?
I thought he was just going to go super obvious things. We play football. No, I felt so. It was so
Abby.
Worse
so people like me. I heard something about it, but I didn't actually hear it. So this is Deshaun Foster, new head coach at UCLA. What exactly did he do?
Good question. So he came out. He talked about being excited about being a head coach at his alma mater. He's really excited to join the Big Ten. Don't really know what you guys know about UCLA. It's in LA. So is USC. He's really excited.
Breaking news.
And then there was like a 13-second. I think somebody said it was like a 13-second pause.
Yeah.
And all of us, we all were like, what's happening right now? It was so uncomfortable. And then thankfully he got questions. He was better at answering. He's much better at talking about football. I want to give him that credit. Like, I'm sure he was nervous and unprepared, which not an excuse.
No one gave him a script. I mean, this is criminal in my opinion.
It was awful. It was just like, oh no, like, did he have a stroke? What happened?
Oh boy.
But thankfully, and somebody asked him at
this
his
would
breakout.
never happen in Nebraska.
Mitch McConnell mid-stroke looked more composed than Deshaun Foster did.
But to be fair, I do want to give him some credit. Somebody asked him at his breakout, like, what happened? And he was like, I don't like talking to the media. I was like, he goes, and I just thought more people would ask. I thought people would be more interested in questions than whatever I had to say. And it was like, that's a great answer. Say that. Just next time, walk up and be like, look, excited to be here. Let's just start with questions. It was, you'll learn. You'll learn.
It worked out great for that other guy.
Yeah.
Well,
always control the narrative whenever you can.
So uncomfortable. It just made me feel so bad.
It's a learning experience for him. But, talk about having like a communications director, staffs are starting to get bigger, and there's some changes that have happened over this offseason. It's been 62 days since we've done a show. But, Dave, you talked about how one of the things we could do to get better is, return punts, better than we did a year ago.
Right.
Who's coaching that now? Ron Brown.
I don't know, eight people. I don't hope.
Ron Brown. Ron Brown will be an on-field coach with returners and coaching fullbacks. They went through a list of other guys. Keith Williams, that's going to be taking over some. Abby, what did they talk about with the expanded coaching staff, specifically at Nebraska? And did you hear anything what other staffs are doing, other schools are doing regarding that, or anything about the rule changes with that?
So we didn't hear anything about other places. Rhule talked about wanting ideally essentially two coaches per position group. He said with the size of our roster right now that's ideal, that to enable to get that kind of developmental help, you need more attention. And so that's the goal that they're moving to. He's not going to announce anything yet. I think they have until the start of the academic year to announce who all these people are and where they're all going. But so many changes, so many. Yes, he's basically adding a coach to every single position room, which is, I think, great. Take advantage of it. Why not?
Yeah. So let's clarify this a little bit, right? I mean, are they limited in any manner on how many people can be coaches?
I don't think so.
Nope.
Right. So I don't even know why they need to announce anything, right? Like mid-season, maybe they bring a third person in, right? I mean, I guess. Boomer, this is
So you're saying I have a chance?
There's a limit. There's a limit, I think, on the recruiting side, like how many can go.
Fair. Okay.
How many can go out and recruit?
I think but there's not a limit to how many on-field coaches.
Yeah, you can have contact with players.
So all of our analysts,
yep,
which we have a bunch of, etc., now suddenly can legally go out and instruct our players to do things in ways that should help their performance. Okay.
Yeah, and in programs like Alabama, I think they have like a 1-to-1 ratio in coaches.
Yeah, it's a 1-to-1, which why not, right? I mean, you could have, you're paying $100,000 for an individual, cornerbacks coach. Sure, no problem. That's not a big deal. We can hire 10 of those guys. I think that's important to understand. I mean, all this stuff is changing so fast. So that's a big first move, is that now we don't have to think of those limits. So again, I think offensive line in particular could really benefit from this, having inside and outside tight ends, running backs. That Ron Brown, I don't know why Ron Brown needs to do two things. He could just do one, whichever one he wants to do. Let's let Ron Brown do fullbacks or, say, I don't care. Right. So, I mean, that's great. Right. I mean, and it's going to be an onslaught of changes here when it comes to NIL and scholarships, everything else after that. Well, maybe we'll talk about it a little bit. But Honky, I mean, this is a big move, right?
Well, it is. And again, I'm going to toss this over to Abbie to see if there's anything that was discussed with this. But at the same time that we're increasing coaching staffs, and to your point, at least for Nebraska this season, maybe another year, we still have a pretty big roster, 135, 140 guys. But now what's starting to be discussed is how is that going to get pulled back? What's that roster size going to look like? The rules haven't been exactly written yet, but we're seeing the SEC wants 105, the Big Ten wants 110. Where's that number going to fall in? But at the same time that we're taking away essentially some spots, apparently it sounds like the scholarships are just going to go from 85 to 110. So you're giving more options. So Abbie, what was anything discussed there today that in regards to that? I know it's a couple years away from probably actually being enacted.
Yeah, I don't think Matt's very happy about it. He talked a lot about there's a good culture here of Nebraska kids who want to just come play. And he doesn't like the idea of having to turn those kids away because that's what this was built on. And so, yes, you're kind of building up from 85 to 105 or 110 or whatever it is. So he so far said he hasn't had to. I mean, he mentioned again, if depending, if a kid gets hurt, what do? Do you take him off scholarship then? Do you kind of move him along? Some schools will. Those be like, all right, sorry, you're done now, or whatever the legal way that they do that is. We've been pretty fortunate not to have to do that, but there will be schools that did that. He did mention one thing that I thought was really interesting and maybe a perspective I hadn't thought of from kind of a positive way is that you might start to see some of those kids, those kind of walk-on kids, those kind of like borderline kids go to FCS schools, G5 schools, Division II, things like that, develop, and then maybe eventually get to kind of a Power 4 or an FBS school, which is interesting. The way it's so funny because the way that I've always been thinking about it is the opposite. It was like the coach with these unlimited analysts and everybody being able to coach. We've seen schools, big schools, poach head coaches from successful programs that are smaller to be analysts, to be assistant coaches. And it's kind of like, so I've been watching it from this kind of doomsday view of like, oh, great. So there's just not going to be good, like is North Dakota State going to stop being good? Is South Dakota State, or, these smaller schools that have been really competitive, if their head coaches are going to go be like analysts at Alabama for a lot more money and probably less work, why wouldn't they? But then what happens to those programs? But from that flip side, if you're getting these kids who could be Division I players playing down there because of these scholarship rosters, does that maybe start to balance that out in a different way?
That's an interesting thought. There's so many variables here that's really hard to figure out how this actually plays out, right? Like one sense, I see the number is clearly limiting, right? We're like suddenly now it's only 105 on the roster and everyone has a scholarship. I also read that a part of this is that kind of like the NFL, is that preseason you'd have an unlimited number of roster spots, right? And so you could potentially have 150 people show up to camp, and it's not till game one that you get down to 105 or 110, right? And I'm always trying to be Honky thinks I'm a pessimist, Abbie, but actually I'm an optimist.
It's my job.
I mean, I'd like to think back to the 80s when we had a JV squad. We had a freshman squad essentially. I'm like, why couldn't we have a second tier team that hey, they're on the reserve squad. They only get to play 3 games against whatever, right? UNK and UNO or whatever, but they're staying fresh and we can pull up from that and fill in the 105 when someone else gets injured, right? I mean, this is so undefined at this point. It's ridiculous to presume anything.
Yeah. And that's something that Matt talked about is we just don't know. There's still so much up in the air of when does this take place and who, like you said, does it start game one? Is that when that number comes? If somebody gets hurt, or do they still count towards that roster, that scholarship limit? There's just surprisingly so much still undefined from the NCAA about what this rule will eventually look like. That I think the impression is he knows something's coming, but until some of that gets, I think, defined, it's really hard to plan for, because you don't know like you said, can you have basically a JV team?
Yeah.
I'm
just waiting for Boomer to report from the sideline of the Nebraska Air Force freshman game in 2027. That's all I'm asking for.
But and in fairness, this isn't necessarily coming from the NCAA itself. This is all stemming from the lawsuit.
Right.
Players. So this isn't some NCAA decision out of the blue. This is part of the agreement when it comes to.
Still not very surprised that there's no solutions yet, but I think didn't that just come out this afternoon? I think that they are limiting it to 105 or 110 or whatever it is.
That's the idea. And again, this still has to go through the whole court process and approval. There's no guarantee this is what it's going to be, and it's still wide open what it's going to be. And like you said, David, that's chaos when it comes to maybe you can have an unlimited roster until opening season, but then what happens to all those 40, 50 kids that don't make that roster?
How do you define roster?
I don't know.
Right?
So there's
there's only 105 of those guys that can play, but I can keep 40 more of them to practice with them. I don't know.
I don't know. So there's a whole lot to figure out on this yet.
And this is the discussion that we can keep going on for future shows. And Abbie, with the show with the spinoff that you want to do, this doesn't just affect football. There's talk of baseball and softball doubling, and so there's a lot of potential that comes from this. But it's kind of a wait and see.
It's kind of a bad thing that tweet went out with the limits, and I was like, oh, that sucks for football. Oh, we get more volleyball scholarships, like so our libero doesn't have to be a
baseball goes from 11.7 to 34.
There's some benefits to our other sports that I think. I mean, obviously, football is the main driver for so many schools, and so that's going to be the big one. But it's like there could be some good from some other sports that come from this. And you're right. Until we know everything, who knows? It's hard to make a decision on how it's going to actually impact the game.
Yeah, I'll end this honky with a rant here, and that Boomer would appreciate it probably. Is like baseball and other sports can have like fractional scholarships, right? You can hand out a 25%. Football is like you're all or nothing. You get one full scholarship or not. Part of this is saying, hey, we'll be able to do fractional scholarships, even though baseball or volleyball is going to go from like super low to like a big cap. I'm confused on why they are deciding that. Technically speaking. Go ahead, Boomer.
What I've seen on that is they're still going to allow fractional scholarships for some of those sports for schools that don't have or say they don't have the money to pay like an entire 30-player baseball scholarship, because there are some schools that just aren't going to have that kind of fundage. Teams in the Big Ten, SEC. We're rolling in dough. I mean,
so we're talking about like lower level conference teams that great, I have 34 scholarships, but I can't afford those 34.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I will pay equivalent of 17 or whatever.
Yes, we can have 17, and we'll pay everybody half a scholarship on the baseball team, something like that. Yeah.
I was trying to put my head around what that meant. I'm like, that doesn't really impact Nebraska, probably.
No. Any of the real halves, it doesn't impact us per se, unless we just want to save money to pay for grass in the stadium or whatever it is. But,
which is another change coming. So
fair enough. All right, Honky, where else do you want to go here tonight? This is fun.
Yeah, we got a whole month's worth of stuff here. A couple of months, Honky.
62 days.
The world's your oyster tonight.
No, I'm looking forward here to the next month as we start practice up. I think Troy Dannen, there's some neat new ideas that have been brought to the athletic department. August 3rd, some of this through the need of NIL and some of the changes that have gone on. August 3rd, there's going to be the open practice, $25. And now all that goes towards NIL, goes towards the collective. I've been calling for that for years, long before NIL. So if NIL was the thing that brought about,
they're listening.
Yeah, well, I mean, seriously, can we get 50,000 people to show up for a practice, and pay $25 a piece? I mean, why not? We get that much, or if not more, for a spring game, and I think there can be a ton of interest there. So that's August 3rd, and I think you have to have your ticket bought by August 2nd. So Redcasters, get out there, buy them up. If you want to come and watch the team, watch a practice, do it, and it's going towards NIL. Also, August 24th, a real neat idea of how they're going to do Fan Day. It's a Saturday before football season kicks off. And volleyball is going to go from 9 to 11 a.m. at Devaney Center, and then hop on over to the Hawks Championship Center, and football's from 11 to 12:30. So, the opportunity there to put those two programs together, and I'm having to pick and choose which one to go to. I think that's smart there. And I just, there's more ways to engage fans, and some of it's monetarily, some of it's the NIL, but there's ways to engage fans with the program in ways that maybe they haven't done before. And I think that's a positive. That's a net win out of all these changes.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Good stuff, guys. Good stuff. All right. We hit the hour mark, which is usually, what we at minimum hit. Honky, is there anything else you want to talk about? I mean,
well, I'd be curious with Abbie. Is there anything else that you'd like to bring up from Big Ten Media Days today, and anything that you're looking forward to tomorrow? And
tomorrow. Just that I've said it a million times on Twitter. I've told you guys, I really appreciate you guys letting me be kind of the correspondent here before, because that kind of got agreed to before we talked about doing the extra stuff that I'll do with you guys. But so I really appreciate it. It's been interesting. It's wild. Like, seeing the backside of all of this is really, I don't want to say it changes, but it gives you a different perspective. And I'm hoping that if we can continue doing things like this, I think it'll just help us as fans and as podcasters. So I don't have anything else to say.
If we can pull back the curtain just a little bit, Abbie, and get
I was going to say, what have you seen there that you were not expecting to see?
It's really boring. like that sounds so bad. I'm so sorry. I think people have this idea that like sports journalists and sports media have this like really exciting, like, oh, they get to talk to coaches, they get to talk to players. Guys, it's real dull. I mean, it's a job. It is a full job, and it is just as exciting and boring as your normal job. It's really cool. Like, I've told Dustin this, like, to me, I still get like, oh, these are like, oh my gosh, Nebraska football players. Like, it's still very exciting. These are still like heroic like figures to me, because I love this sport and I love them, and I'm not used to it. Mm-hmm. But just so many of these people, it's like, oh yeah, that's Matt. Yeah, that's James. We've talked to him, and it's so I don't want to say saying it's boring is probably not the right way to say it, but it is really how normal.
It's a part
of normal. Yeah. The whole thing is, it's just another day of work for them, and I think that that was really humbling. I think, and kind of as a fan, to be like, okay, don't get too excited about this, because nobody else is, and this is not the place to like fangirl over people. This is the place.
There's no cheering in the press box, Abbie.
There is no no cheering in the press box. That's why I can't go with Dustin to be in the press box, because I can't be quiet. But it's so it's a very normal thing, and it's fun for us as fans to watch, and it was fun for me as a fan to experience. But I think if I get to go next year, it'll be a day, it'll be a weekend, or whatever it is, where this is our job now to find this, to get this information. And it's kind of cool. I think it's a cool experience to get to that point where it's still exciting. You still really like hearing from them, but it's just a Tuesday. So
I'm curious.
It's actually Wednesday today.
Yeah.
No, it is not.
It's a Street Fighter line. Let it
Friday all week. I don't know. I have no concept of time.
I'm curious how many other like fan podcasts have had passes to go to media days. I'm also curious, and I think I know the answer to this, how many other fan podcasts have had press passes to Husker football games. And I know that Boomer and Dave got to be up there for the Georgia Southern game in 2022 that we lost.
An eventful game, right?
As I understand, there was no cheering in the press box that night for sure. That was
pretty easy not to cheer. Yeah.
I would say that I might be the only Nebraska podcast person to attend an actual Husker win. So
as a media member,
as a podcast member, yeah.
Right.
As a podcast,
I think we're probably the only one, Abbie. We're the only one there. Is that true?
There weren't a lot. There's a couple. I mean, there were some, but they're still pretty small. I would say that it still is mostly kind of print and like TV media.
So I'm going to clarify. You heard other teams have podcasters.
Yeah,
ask
there was.
questions?
I mean, there's some. I met up with an Illinois guy who runs who has on a podcast, an
Mhm.
Oregon guy. But I don't think podcast. They might not know that this is a thing, and let's not tell it, guys. Nobody else, no other podcast will know.
It's our little secret,
We're
Redcasters.
cool about it. Yeah, I think, and maybe because
We're that awesome.
we are that awesome. We have that
There we go.
credibility. We've been around for a long time. I think that goes a long way.
I like
But
that you're
yeah,
saying we. That makes me feel
I
really
am
good.
so part of this now. Oh, don't worry, I've been embracing it. But yeah, I would still say majority is print media or kind of internet type media.
Yeah, sure.
Or just random bloggers.
Or just random bloggers who ask about food.
Well, I'm
There
glad
is-
we asked a
Wait, wait.
really great question.
It was a good
That was a
one.
great question. Dustin asked what Lincoln Riley there. I do have.
Oh, was
was
he
there-
the brisket question asker?
Yeah, he was the
Yeah.
brisket.
Oh
Yeah.
God,
Yeah,
I
that
love
was
him even
Dustin.
more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
funny.
That was well done. I've always heard that Nebraska, from a media standpoint, we have this large contingent. I mean, what did
Yeah.
boots on the ground?
Yeah.
Did that show itself here today?
Yeah, I would say today Nebraska was definitely definitely Nebraska. Yesterday, Ohio State, not surprisingly, showed up. I think part of that is location. I think there were some Penn State guys. I think had it been closer, the East Coast
Mhm.
Penn State would show up a lot more. But it was, I mean, we were stealing chairs from other individual speakers for Matt's talk. So that's how many. I mean, there were a lot there, and there were a lot covering and wanting to talk about it. So it was it was surprisingly comparable to Ryan Day, just given who Ryan Day is. We didn't stay for Lincoln, so I don't know. I assume that Lincoln Riley, Dan Lanning will have some big contingencies, but it was pretty impressive the amount of media that was there covering Nebraska and have been there the whole time. Illinois fans and Ohio State fans didn't show up, or fans. Yikes. Media didn't really show up today, and they likely won't be there tomorrow. They kind of came and did their day and went. But there was a lot of Nebraska media that was there yesterday, and I assume will stay through tomorrow as well.
Cool.
That's great. Very cool. All right. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, I think this is a really good first show of the season, right? So let's start getting out of here with some parting shots. And I haven't said this in a long time, but Rob's been pretty quiet. So let's give Rob his first parting shot.
Well, thanks, Dave, for shutting up long enough for me to talk. I appreciate that. And I just want to, again, just give a big shout out to Adam Carricker for reaching out to us and allowing us to be a part of his Carricker Chronicles project that he's been doing for years and years now. And, as he was upgrading the website, he had a list of a lot of different podcasts and things that he wanted to reach out to. And we were at the top of that list. And that's a pretty big honor as far as and it just, it's great here. I don't even know how many seasons. Will this be season 8? I think it is, or something of
9,
the Redcast.
10, doesn't really
7, 8,
matter, Rob.
9,
It's
10. I
good
don't.
enough there.
I mean, you guys,
Rob.
48
times.
years, really, considering I don't know how long you guys have all been friends, and the text threads and emails that you guys have been doing for years and years. But this is really great. I know how Abbie feels because I kind of felt the same way when you guys first let me start being a part of that. And I'm really excited.
Rob,
to
are
have
you
her.
giddy still to this day?
I am, but I'm also, and like I know Abbie's going to, I'm still out there putting in the work out there all the time and just trying to make sure that, we bring you guys, and when I say you guys, I mean the people listening here, good content, and I know that Abbie's going to be able to do that for us this year as well. I'm really excited to open myself up to learning a lot more about volleyball, softball, women's basketball, like all of these women's sports that we want to talk about more. We've talked about wanting to talk about more, and now it's going to allow me to really make sure that I understand what's going on, because we're going to actually have a lot of really good guests that Hurrdat Sports is going to set up for us.
Nice.
Some of Abby's favorite
Awesome.
players ever, especially. And, from that perspective, it's going to be really cool. Because
Mark is coming on the show.
Who?
Yeah.
Let's not. Okay. You'll be running that one on your own, because I don't know if I could hold my tongue. So.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, so. Anyway, I know that was a really
Rob,
long parting shot.
Done
I'm
your
done. I'm
soliloquy,
done. I am done, Dave. I'm done.
All
That's
right.
it. I'm done. Goodbye.
Let's throw up the rest of the parting shots then. And let's go to Boomer.
Yeah, I don't have quite as long of parting shots. Abbie kind of covered my main one. It's, we moved some statues around at Memorial Stadium, so we have an opening. And longtime listeners of the Redcast know we have plenty of ideas for who can go there. So, you got your choice. I mean, if you're listening, anyone in the athletic department, you got Baron Von Raschke, you got Jumbo Steam, you got Mummy Booth. Just DM us. I can send you some information. I got whole emails written up that you've ignored before. So
the plaque has already been written. We just need to cap.
Yep, I can resend it. Really. A click of a button.
Yeah.
So
that's very true. True. All right, Abby. This is the very honorable second spot before Honky. So go for it.
Oh man.
I'm glad you did not do that earlier today.
You know that UCLA is in LA. That's my parting shot. UCLA is in LA.
So is USC.
And USC.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's good. That was funnier than most of Rob's parting shots ever. So it's like, Honky, get us out of here, man.
Well, Abby, you thanked us, but I want to return the favor there. I want to thank you. You did an outstanding job there representing the Redcast at Big Ten Media Days, and we're proud of you there. And it was some great content there, and we had a lot of fun with it today on social media too. And moving forward, I don't know if we, with the spinoff here, if we've do we need like a naming contest, or do you already have some ideas? We could throw that out there to Redcast Nation.
But I love it. Let's put it out there.
Yeah, do something.
For
we can try to do
I
something
wanted
fun.
Spiked Kool-Aid.
Spiked? Well, thing is, so we've got some time to kind of put this together for the season here and everything. But it's great to have you on and a part of this here. Couple of things. 3.214. I think that was the number that was thrown out there. The football team has their highest GPA ever. 3.214. So. I think Rhule, and he hit on this a little bit on the Joel Klatt interview too.
Really?
Yeah, and he hit on this on the Joel Klatt interview where there's so much of the negative gets talked about right now with NIL and portal and all the things that are wrong with football and college athletics right now. But he really hit on all the things that are going right now too. That there's opportunities that kids are have and there's things that they're doing from a charity standpoint that's part of this and getting out there in the community. They're doing a lot of great work there, but also they are still student athletes. And, some people always look at that with a tongue in cheek, but 3.214, I mean, that's, you get a group of, 70, 80, 100 people together and you have that's incredible. So kudos there. And then my last parting shot here, it's been 62 days since we did a show. It's great that we are back and we're going through the little technical challenges of getting it back. We'll be on Twitter hopefully again here, or X, whatever it is. We'll be back on it. But during those 62 days, had a chance to go on a nice Alaskan trip with the family. Even had my mom was there with us, so that was very nice. Got up there, saw a friend of mine that was went to UNL, Yukon Chris, up in the Wasilla Palmer area. And all I can tell you is the number of people, I wore Husker stuff almost every day. And the number of people up in areas of Juneau, and then you get into like remote parts of Alaska. I can't tell you how many people came up, talked to me about Huskers. When we were in Juneau, we were in downtown Juneau at this outdoor bar, and a guy came up to me and he calls me Coach Rhule. And then next thing I know, he's inviting me over to his place. Kathy and I invites us over to his place to go kayaking on his lake. And it's like,
Did you ever tell him you weren't Coach Rhule?
No. I just smile, right? I've just learned this. I've learned this. Oh, and speaking of that, last week I went to Indianapolis for a conference, and I get off the plane, and a guy comes up, and I'm wearing an N since I work with the Nebraska Foundation. I have an N on my shirt, and the guy comes up to me. He's just got a big old smile. He's like, "What are you doing here?" And I was looking at him like, "Do I know this guy?" I was like, "Oh, how you doing, buddy? I'm here for a conference. I'm with the foundation. I'm here for a conference." And his face just kind of like the big smile. I couldn't have let him down more. He just, like, "You're not him." And he just kind of walked away.
That is great.
Should have told her you're in Indiana. I mean, that would have been great.
Oh my!
I have incredible opportunities with this face I have to brighten someone's day and then ruin it.
Do
all at the same time.
48 years, and you never thought you'd say those words, huh, Honky?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
so, anyways,
great.
So I thought in honor of that, I'm wearing the schmuck.
Yeah.
I've got the
Matt
Rhule schmuck
every year. We don't know what he's going to be wearing.
That's
year.
the best thing I've ever bought for you, Honky. I think that right
right
there is probably the greatest gift I've ever given you.
Yeah.
That's
no, I appreciate it. So, anyways, I guess I had a long parting shot there, but it's been 62 days. So,
yeah, normally you go 3 or 4. We've had over under bets on this.
Yeah, that was way under, Honky.
Good.
It was just a long one shot, really.
Just rolled
right,
into
guys.
it. Yep.
That's right. Well, that was fun. That was fun. I mean, it's July 24th. We are back in season. Looking forward to the Pick 6 preview, which is one of our best shows of the year every year. Brett will have tons of information for us on what's going to happen in this next college football season. And so looking forward to that. For now, let's call that another Go Big Redcast.
Go Big Red.
GBR.
A Herd at Sports Network production.